Welcome to Strong in the Broken Places. My name is Jeffrey Reuter. I'm going to talk just a little bit more about alignment today. This topic is so deep and personal and inspiring to me that I just want to share just a little bit more. And today I would like to talk about Viktor Frankl. Yesterday I brought up three ways we can align ourselves. And the three ways were aligning ourselves with what we say to what we do, aligning ourselves to our goals, and aligning ourselves to the reason why we are created, which ultimately is the legacy question. And if you're not familiar with the legacy question is this. Picture yourself at your own funeral. What would the people at the funeral say about you at your funeral? I first asked myself this question in 2003, and I was very candid with my answer, and I just simply didn't like my answer at all. It was horrible, and no one had anything good to say about me at my own funeral in 2003. That's just the way I was living, and it was ugly. I started my change process shortly after that. Something that helped me embrace my change process was a book by Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning. And Viktor Frankl was a Holocaust survivor. He survived the death camps. He was in the death camps for 4 years. Everybody in his family was murdered. He saw literally thousands, tens of thousands of people around him gassed, dying of starvation and malnutrition, medical experiments. It was just ugly. He was literally living a nightmare. I thought I was living a nightmare when I was in prison, and I used to complain about being in prison until I read Viktor Frankl's book. And then I felt so ashamed for even having the audacity to complain about my situation that I stopped. I never complained about being in prison after that. I didn't like it at all. So let's not misunderstand that. I just never complained about being in prison after that. Viktor Frankl was in this. This is what helped Viktor Frankl. There's a philosopher. Viktor Frankl was a philosopher. He's from Vienna, and he spent several time in different death camps in that area of Nazi-occupied Europe. So when he was in prison, he grasped onto Friedrich Nietzsche's philosophy. And Friedrich Nietzsche said this one particular quote. Nietzsche said that if a person has a strong enough why, he or she can overcome almost any how. And what Nietzsche was talking about was that if you knew what your purpose was, if you knew what your mission in life was, that no matter what happened, if you were aligned with your mission, with your goal, with accomplishing that, with achieving that no matter what life throws at you, you could overcome that. In most instances, you could overcome that if you knew what your reason was. So Viktor Frankl grasped onto this idea, and it was one day when he was deathly sick, and he was being abused, he was being tortured, he hadn't eaten in days. It was the middle of winter. He had to march, and he had no shoes on. He's marching in the snow, in the ice, in Germany and Poland and the area where he was at, and it gets bitterly cold there, and he's marching in this weather with no shoes on. And this is what Viktor Frankl came to him. This is what kept him going. And this is his philosophy of logotherapies. And at that particular instance, that the Nazis had taken everything away from him except for one thing. And that was his ability to choose. His ability to decide how he was going to feel that day. His ability to determine whether or not he was going to lay down and die right there during that march or keep on going. So Viktor Frankl decided that he was going to survive this, that he was going to keep going, and that he was going to share to the world his philosophy of logotherapies. Now, this book is a very small book. It's tiny. It's not even 200 pages long, but it's profound. And I've read this book several times over the years. And this is what Frankl said about people who knew what they wanted to accomplish intrinsically, that knew their value intrinsically. And what I'm talking about here is what's on the inside. And I have another story for another time about that intrinsic value. And he said this, he said that when people had that purpose, when they had that drive, when they knew what they were going for, more times than not, they could survive the camp. But what he noticed was the people that had that extrinsic value, that means their value was in what they used to have, their job, their position, their status, material objects, that more times than not, when they were stripped bare, and the Nazis stripped people bare, raw, that those people died because now all of a sudden who they were was in what they had, and since they no longer had what they were, they died. But Viktor Frankl, what he had was inside of him. That was inside of him. And the people that determined to live, to expose what the Nazis did, to live, to try to find their families and their kids, when they were able to do that, they were able to survive. Not all the time, because it was brutal, but more times than not, when people had that reason to live, when they had that alignment, they could survive it. And this is my message for you today, that life is difficult. It's tough, even today, right now. So we're not comparing ourselves to what happened 80 years ago, because we're living today. And what you're going through is very real to you. So that's what matters. That's what matters to me. That's what matters to us, is we want to be strong in those broken places. But if you can align yourself with a mission, with your goals, get some goals, get something to really strive for, and figure out what your mission is. Why were you created? You can do that if you just get alone with yourself and just think about it. It will come to you. Eventually, it will come to you if you put some time and effort into this. So figure these things out. If you can figure these things out and align yourself to that, no matter where you find yourself today, you will become strong in your broken places. You will overcome, and just life will just, the whole dynamic of life, no matter what life throws at you, it'll change. The paradigm changes. We're about changing paradigms here, and the paradigm will change for you. Let's sum this up. If you like what we're doing, if you like these messages, then like us, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Please start sharing these messages with a friend. We're here to change lives. And I'll talk to you later. Have a great day. Bye.